When it comes to learning how to live a long, healthy, and happy life, who better to learn from than the people who are actually doing it? It's time for us to start paying more attention to older people. There are brain trusts that we should tap into. Journalist Tom Brokaw called them the greatest generation that ever lived. They valiantly defended us from fascism in World War II, overcame the Great Depression, and were threatened by diseases like polio and tuberculosis. What can we learn about dealing with adversity and aging gracefully from people who lived through tough times? On this segment of the Wellness Spotlight, we're going to find out. Thanks to Rachel Steinberg and Sharon Riley Morosi from East Brunswick's Department on Aging, we have three shining stars who've honed their survival instincts in ways that many of us haven't had to. They're here to share their life lessons for longevity and wellness, and I'm privileged to introduce to you Bonnie Axe, John Marvel, and Jean Kenahan. Welcome to the Wellness Spotlight. Bonnie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I hesitate about telling you my age, but by golly, I have to. 1928. You can figure it out for yourself.
What was your occupation?
I was manager in East Brunswick in a swimming pool place. And if there was any difficulty there, I was the oldest one there, and they'd say, give it to Bonnie.
Have you been a lifelong resident of East Brunswick, Bonnie? Or
No, I lived in New York, I lived in Canada, Quebec. I use the French pronunciation. And then we came into East Brunswick because somebody there in Canada recommended it. We had no idea. We had been away from it for so long, and we found out it's very expensive to live there, and I had no idea that Canada was no different than America. And I loaded myself up with cosmetics and all sorts of things because I had no idea.
When did you come to East Brunswick?
It was 1972. And I think 1973, there was an oil difficulty. I believe you should remember it, I think. And we had to line up to get oil. And more or less what the situation is going on today. And from there, I hadn't been working at that point. I was the mother, and I had teenage children. And my husband, I'd come home, and he'd be sitting with the fork in one hand and the spoon in the other, and I was making supper. And when we got to East Brunswick, I was free of all those things, and I decided I'm going to work. So I went to the troopers, the state troopers in East Brunswick, where I got a job. I could have been a teacher, but I didn't have any certification. And I got $1.10 an hour, and that was considered beginning pay. This was 1973. And when I asked for a raise, I got 10 cents. So I was doing okay in East Brunswick. And then I went on to other employment.
Jean, I'm going to go with you next.
Okay, my name is Jean Kenahan. I've lived in East Brunswick for 50 years. Prior to that, I grew up in Pennsylvania, went to nursing school in Pennsylvania. At that time, it was a 3-year certificate degree. After some time, my children had grown. They were, by that time, I think in 5th and 7th grade, if I recall. I went to Jersey City State and got my bachelor's degree and became a school nurse here in East Brunswick at Hammersholt, where I worked for 30 years, happily so.
Wonderful.
Yes, it was very enjoyable. And I don't miss the working. I did miss some of the people that I worked with because it was a very nice social situation as well. I'm widowed, have been for a long time. Actually, I want to give accolades to the Senior Center because I'm fairly active there, and it's just a wonderful organization. They have such marvelous programs, very nice people. John is one of them. And you can become involved as little or as much as you would like. I thoroughly enjoy it there.
Thank you, Jean. So let's meet John.
My name is John Marvel. I was born in Wilmington, Delaware, and we moved, we lived in, my wife and I, who I'm a widow. She died, unfortunately, about 3 years ago. We lived in Madison, Wisconsin, where all the activity is right now today, for about 5 years. We moved back to the Philadelphia area and then to East Brunswick in about 1963. I worked, or I was employed by Johnson & Johnson for approximately 35 years. I have 3 wonderful children and 2 interesting and very good grandchildren. I think that's about it.
Thank you, John.
I wound up at J&J as a research fellow.
A research fellow, I'd like to ask each of you the same question to start out. I'm wondering what you feel are some of the keys that have led to your longevity and high quality of life. Jean, can we start with you first?
Maybe genetics. I think you have to stay involved. I'm 85 years old, and I just feel like you have to keep doing things. You have a choice of sitting around and saying, oh, woe is me, or you can just get busy and do things. And you can also have live your life such that it enhances your health, doesn't detract from it.
What are some of the things that you feel you've been able to do that have helped you get to, a healthy 85?
Well, I exercise a lot.
What kind of exercise?
Well, I go to the senior center now 3 days a week, an hour each day, and we do resistance training, we do aerobics, we dance, we have a wonderful time.
Wonderful. What else?
Yeah. I can't say that I eat too healthily, I must say. I mean, I eat healthy foods, but I also eat some that aren't so wonderful. I don't know. Just, I guess, have an open mind and don't get bogged down and say, oh, woe is me. Things happen, and I say to myself now, what's the worst thing that can happen? And when I was working, I had a famous saying. The person who worked with me used to laugh. I used to say, the world won't end. Just have an attitude, I suppose.
That's good advice.
Thank you.
John?
Well, I'll start off with her attitude. I think it's important to realize who you are and what you can do. There's nothing really I can't do. Just because I happen to be 80 isn't a limiting factor. I eat well. The thing is, I dislike going to a restaurant and sitting alone. So I do cook my own, do my own cooking. This way I can limit the amount of sodium I consume. I can limit the saturated fats, also the calories. And it's not a starvation diet. I can have, I try to avoid red meats, things of that sort. But I can have salmon, preferably wild-caught salmon, chicken, shrimp, turkey, things of that sort, which gives me a well-rounded diet. In the morning, I have a nice diet of a high-fiber cereal with New Jersey blueberries. What I do is in June or early July, I will buy maybe 36 boxes of New Jersey blueberries and freeze them. This way I can pull out a fresh box once a week. And talking to people in Hamilton, how to handle that, they gave me the directions. I do some exercise. I do exercise. Every day I try to take a 20-minute aggressive walk. So between walking and also the diet, the other thing is I benefit from the advances in medicine. My father died when he was 65 from a heart attack. My brother, who was older than I, but still he was only 39, died of a heart attack also. It runs in the family. And so 20 years ago, bypass surgery was perfected. I had bypass surgery, and I feel great. My son has already had his bypass. So there's some good things in life, but overall, life is great.
Thank you, John. Bonnie?
I have been dancing since I'm 6.
What type of dancing?
Oh, everything. I can do everything.
Jazz, tap, ballet?
Everything. I could do a hula. I could do everything. And my sister was 6 years older than I. And I used, very pretty woman. And I used to peek because she had endless boyfriends. And I used to see what's going on. And they caught me, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I want to dance too." So one of the young men, who was probably 16 or 17, he said, "Come on, I'm going to teach you." And my sister went to my mother and said, "Why don't you get rid of her?" But they couldn't. They simply couldn't. And I loved it. I loved it. I've been dancing all my life. I danced with groups of women and men before high schools, high schools, hospitals, before J&J, and I can remember I was dancing, I was just doing everything, and they said, "Come on, Mama, keep going," and I did. And to this day, the only thing that has halted the procedure somewhat, I'm getting back, is the fall that I had and the scar that you noticed. But I do everything. I could do it now. Even when I'm home alone and I'm a widow, I put on the hottest music I can get, and I'm doing everything. So I'm doing fine.
That's
right
what Zoom
now.
is about now, you know? It's about exercising to music.
Oh, yeah. It's just, that's why I think I don't gain any weight or anything like that, because I'm doing everything that I love.
Now, Bonnie, in addition to dancing, which is good for your body and your soul,
yes.
What else do you do?
Oh, what else do I do?
You have anything special by way of diet? You know, John was talking about eating blueberries, which are high in antioxidants that are very good for you.
Something. I get a magazine. It's about 4 or 5 pages. It's called Bottom Line. Have you heard of it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a Bible too. There's all kinds of wonderful things in there, and I do that. I have lunch with various people. I go out. I know lots of restaurants now, and I know I seem to be busier now than I was when I was single. So, but I'm enjoying life. I feel good, and I'm an optimist, and everything is wonderful.
Thank you. Do you feel that the things that people are doing today to be healthy are different from the things that people did 50 years ago to be healthy? John?
Well, the thing is, I really don't, compared to 20, 40 years ago, the medications I'm taking now and the medications that the younger people can take, fantastic difference. We got effective agents against hypertension, the statins and everybody's talking about the statins and Lipitor, things of that for their cholesterol and their triglycerides. Type 2 diabetes now is recognized, so people early in their lifestyle are starting to take medication. These are things that really have advanced in the last 20, 30 years, in addition to that coupled with the diets, things of that sort of people realizing that too much sugar in their diet is not beneficial and are really facing up to obesity. I don't mean to be technical or anything of that sort, but it's really a fantastic time for young people. They're moving into, they will be better prepared to move into later ages and become a little more mature. I don't talk about being old.
More mature.
Yes.
Yes.
And I guess the reference to the medications, I happen to be I happen to have my doctorate degree in pharmaceutics, so I apologize.
No apology necessary, John. You know, today it seems like one of the big differences between today and what I've noticed years ago is that it seems today more people want to get away from pharmacotherapeutics. You know, rely on them when absolutely necessary, but
True.
try to eat better and exercise and do things to be able to control cholesterol and lower the risk of heart disease and control obesity and do a lot of other things by being able to do things that are more natural, whether it's eating a healthier diet or exercise or things like that.
I think those things are true, and it just minimizes the need for medication. But there are some people who, no matter what they do on these aspects of eating and also exercise, they still need help. And now we have help.
Jean?
Well, years ago, kids ran around and played. I don't know when I last saw a child out playing.
You know, that's true.
That's also in our neighborhood. I've noticed that.
Really?
Neighborhoods have really changed in how people don't even know their neighbors anymore, whereas years ago, kids just went over other kids' houses and they called for them and came outside, and before you knew it, you know, now you need a lawyer to be able to make a play date.
Well, they still call and they still go to the houses, but they stay in and they do the DVDs and they do the games and they do Facebook and all of the newer things. Also, years ago, there weren't, the general public, let's say, didn't have access to all of the machines and what have you that we have now for exercising. But they did ride their bikes, and they did do a lot of walking, a lot of running, so I don't know. They had access to healthy living, even though it was different than the kind of access that we use now.
And towns have changed probably also over 50 years or more, where years ago people lived close to the center of town, so they had easier access to get to things, so you could walk or take a bike to get there. But now everything is so spread out. If you want to go to the mall, you need a car. If you know, you need to go to the doctor, you need a car. Everything involves. If your car breaks in this area, you almost feel like you have no legs.
Exactly.
Very true.
Yes. But getting back to the kids playing outside, there's a safety factor now. Parents are really reluctant to let their kids just sort of roam.
One of the things that I love most about East Brunswick is that we have such a terrific park system.
Right.
And you know, our park system and our Department of Recreation all have programs that cater to families and especially get young kids out of doors and active, whether it's soccer, baseball, you know, other activities too. Crystal Springs Aquatic Center, the pools are there.
It's wonderful.
Yes.
Isn't it wonderful?
What do you feel younger people need to know about living a longer, healthier life, John?
Well, I think what they ought to know is there is opportunities for extending life from the standpoint that, and there's a purpose in the extending life, and that life at the age of 60 or 70 or 80 is not a dead end. That there are still real opportunities. There's nothing really that I can't do. Well, there's a couple, but we won't go into that. But the thing is, there is really nothing out there that is prohibitive. And that if they take care of themselves, and I think smoking has become highlighted. That I remember going to a meeting in the early 60s, excuse me, and it showed from the NIH, the graph showed a dramatic rise in lung cancer of women, and it turns out to be the time that it was fashionable to smoke.
That's right. When you were much younger, it was the thing to do. You saw it in the movies. It was popularized everywhere. You know, it was very chic. Even doctors had ashtrays on their desks and would smoke in the middle of a consultation. Now you can't even smoke in a public place in East Brunswick and many of the places around town.
As a young woman, I wouldn't even date a guy who smelled, you know.
Of cigarette smoke.
Because it went down to my bra, whatever I was wearing. It was awful. And and some good-looking guys just put 'em out of the way.
I'm happy to say that I have never smoked, ever.
Burned a little, though, right?
Well, you know something?
Got it.
I think it starts from the top. I've got 3 children. I got 2 boys, and my daughter is a physician. And we didn't even attempt to try it and see what it's like, because it was just smelly. Who wanted it?
The 3 of you have lived through some very stressful times.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it's like to go through a World War or a Great Depression. Do you think it's more stressful living back then, or do you think it's more stressful now?
Now.
You answered very quickly, Bob.
Yeah. Because I watch TV, and I watch Fox a lot, and I know a lot of people are very upset about that. But I hear what I consider truth going on, and I see what's going on in the economy, and it's frightening. I won't pursue that, but I find that I'm under stress after I'm watching it. So that's my reply.
What do you think, Jean?
I think the stresses are, to some extent, a little different. We had the Depression. I was a child, really. But I can remember living through the Depression. I can remember getting a nickel when my father got paid.
That was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money, that's right.
A nickel, you could really buy something at that time. I just think the stresses are different today. The people are under pressure to succeed, to have what the other person has and do what the other person does. It's just very different.
What do you think, John? Thank you, Jean.
I think it's a little bit different from the standpoint. I agree exactly what she was saying, that I remember the Depression, and yes, a penny or a nickel was significant. The only thing is, we all pulled together, our neighbors, our families. We were not individuals. Too often, it seems in this era, there isn't that sharing or that concern. I mean, the people in Wilmington, on the block that we lived, a lot of people in the mid-30s and late 30s either didn't have a job or had a job that barely got them by, but you shared. I know that my relatives who lived on the farms in southern Delaware would share with us, and we would share with them.
There was a social responsibility.
Yes. And so it's different now that too many people are on their own. And during the Second World War, it was a traumatic time. We never got bombed, but my mother was a air raid warden, you know, with a white metal hat and things of that sort. But we got by.
Thank you, John. We only have a few minutes left, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface. I'm curious, if you had it to do all over again, to be healthier, you know, if you could turn back the hands of time and you could get back to the time when you were, say, 15, 20 years old, and you had the rest of your life to live up to this point now, are there any things that each of you would do differently in order to be healthier? Jean?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm 85 and I'm okay.
You must be doing something
So
right.
I must be. And as I always say, and I hope I get a lot older.
Well, I was fortunate. I had a wife who was a nurse from the Philadelphia area also.
Oh, really?
Yes. So she took care of us, and we were, our food was well cooked and tasty, things of that sort. We had a lifestyle where we did a lot of camping, so we were out looking at things. We were very interested in our children. I have to reflect back every once in a while and realize how thankful I am of how things were at that time. And that's one thing about being 80. there are all kinds of opportunities, but you can be very thankful about what you have right now also.
Gratitude.
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'm smiling. He has a wonderful attitude. I know when I'm ordering clothing on the telephone and they say, Mrs. Axe, what else can we do for you? And I'll say, make me 21. Wave a magic wand and I'll be 21. So I don't know about being in the 80s. Yuck.
Well, so anybody asks me, every day is a great day. Some days are greater than others, but every day is really a great day.
What do you think has enabled you to have, all of you seem to share that one thing in common? You know, if I've heard one thing over and over again, it's what a positive mindset each of you has. In 10 seconds, what tips would you have to encourage people to have a positive attitude, Jean?
Maintain your health as best you can and remain as active as possible.
Thank you. John?
I think what you have to do is ask yourself, why not? Why shouldn't I do something like that? Instead of always being negative, well, I better not do things along that line or things. And have a positive outlook on life and realize how fortunate we are living in East Brunswick even.
Thank you, John. Bonnie?
Learn to dance, learn to swim, fall in love, and just be as happy as you can be.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The three of you have been just a delight. I've loved meeting with you and conversing with you about this. And I feel like we could just go for hours. Mm-hmm. Bonnie Axe, John Marvel, Jean Canahan, thank you so much for being part of today's Wellness Spotlight segment. This concludes another segment of the East Brunswick Advisory Health Council's Wellness Spotlight. I'm Dr. Ken Friedman, President of the East Brunswick Advisory Health Council, reminding you that wellness works when you work it.